No,
All right. It's Monday. That must mean that we are live once again from the Dogleg Brewery in Fort Worth, Texas. For You Can't Brew That on Television. Now here are your hosts, Brewmeisters Kyle and the Reverend Ryan Bono. Gentlemen.
How you doing down there? You're closer to the Gulf and the oil emissions than we are.
Can you smell the oil yet? Is it
raining oil?
Well, Houston always smells kind of funny. So the oil will only be an improvement.
Okay.
Have you seen Dick Cheney? I heard that he was having a post-explosion beer down there in Houston, where he celebrated his exploding the oil rig. Is that right?
Oh no! The going rumor is that Obama did it in his secret mini sub.
Okay.
Just to one up GW.
I thought it was that you can throw that on.
Did he borrow it from James Cameron?
I always picture Dick Cheney actually causing that event and then laughing like Snidely Whiplash.
Yeah.
All right, we've gotten our nasty political stuff in for tonight. Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to Dogleg Brewery in Fort Worth, Texas, where we come to you every Monday and help you bridge the gap between frat boy and beer snob. Kyle, what's going on tonight?
Well, tonight we're going to talk about the beer we're drinking because it's no longer pre-show.
Oh, yes, get the pre-show out of here. This is the real deal.
We'll discuss our show here. And our show, we're going to be talking about Deschutes Brewery beer. We're going West Coast. This may be our first West Coast. I don't know. I can't really remember. It's been a lot of beers since we started. But we did Sierra Nevada.
We did do a Sierra Nevada, thank you.
First Oregon brew, I'm pretty sure. First Oregon brew?
Yes, we have not done any Oregon
Okay, well, good. First Oregon brew. One of the biggest home brewing states, one of the biggest craft brewing states in the country. So.
They love them some craft beer out there in Oregon. And this really is a fantastic brewery. I think this was just a great suggestion by John last week. And just reading the label, I've been really excited about this. Guys, as you pour the cinder cone, you're going to see that nice big... Whoa, and I just inhaled some head because it smelled so good.
That's really heavy caramel.
Yeah, definitely.
But I just want to let you know we're going to go ahead and isolate that.
Nice. Nice. I'm never going to hear the end of that one, am I?
I think we should steal from Lex and Terry and do one of their soundbite shows. They do a show every now and again, a little syndicated morning radio show where they go back and they isolate the clips and the guy has to try to remember what he was talking about when he says something that's completely dirty when it's taken out of context. They call it out of context.
I think that'd be a fun episode, actually.
It would be a lot of fun.
I think it's definitely something to do next season.
That takes a lot more production-ery, and we don't want to steal all of Richard's time over there. He has got more shows here on Lone Star Network.
Oh, we'll always have time for you guys.
So we're a few tastes into this Deschutes Cinder Cone. What do you think?
That is fantastic.
I'm just amazed by this.
This is what an American red is supposed to taste like. I mean, it really is.
Really well balanced.
And to me, there's only a subtle difference or two between a red and an amber, and I do not enjoy most ambers.
I don't
really enjoy them. I think that
I love the caramel palate.
Oh man,
out of this red.
Huge.
I mean, that's amazing.
It just tastes like you're drinking a beer through one of the little caramel packages that you get at
every sip is like a stick of butter. Caramelized butter.
Caramelized at that. So today we're going to talk about
repeatability in beer. We're going to talk about repeatability
in beer.
And before we get to that, we're going to have a little bit of trivia. We're going to talk about Iron Mash a little bit.
Okay.
And Rich, why don't you jump in on the trivia? Have you got that ready up and ready for us?
Sure do. And this one's all about you, I guess, this week, Bono.
This falls into the category of vocabulary. We're going to learn some beer vocab tonight.
Beer vocab. All right, I'm ready.
No, don't ever say this show isn't educational. So it's a nice trivia question for Kyle and anybody else who wants to join in. The Reverend here used to take part in tegestology, I'm guessing is what that's pronounced. What is that?
Tegestology.
Tegestology.
Can you use it in a sentence?
The Reverend used to take part in tegestology.
Dang it. Can you use it in a more descriptive sentence that would describe the word?
The Reverend never smashed anything in the parking lot while taking part in Tegestology. That gives you more hints than you think.
No, it sounds really good.
He got it in the nose, and it smelled so good.
Okay, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with digesting alcohol.
All right.
Kyle
Kyle says that Tegestology is digesting alcohol, and the Reverend no longer digests alcohol. So we'll find out at the end of the
You
episode.
used to take part. Oh, this is something
So we'll find out at the end of the episode whether or not the Reverend still digests
what's that?
alcohol.
Well, the stealing would have been the obvious answer, but I didn't want to go with that because we got this thing's like
The country of origin. This is not
The country of origin is Latin.
All right.
Latin land.
So we've got our trivia out. Now we want to talk a little bit about a really neat event coming up here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Let's put it where it is.
Yeah, we'll leave Dallas where it's at for the time being.
Dallas can stay to the east because we're going to have the Iron Mash right here in Fort Worth. And Iron Mash is a really fun event. We did it last year. Fun to take part in. Fun to drink the rewards of our labor. Kyle, tell us a little bit about Iron Mash.
Iron Mash it's great. I mean, it's the Iron Chef for beer, Iron Mash, as they call it. And so they'll give you all the ingredients that you need to make a beer. Maybe not all the ingredients you need to make the beer you plan to make, and then they'll give you secret ingredients that you have to use. So the ingredients that they give you as a bulk, pick from these to make it, well, you've got those, and then you've got here's what's left over, here's 4 or 5 different special ingredients, and you got to put them in there.
The special ingredients. Eye of Newt was not used last year.
No, Eye of Newt
not yet. Year. But the special ingredients are usually things that are not found in beer, not generally associated with beer. So last year, for instance,
or rarely associated. Or
rarely, yeah. Because I think cranberries. I think you'll see
cranberries and peppers was one last year. I've had lemongrass beers before. I've had anise beers. I've had beers with all of those ingredients that were there last year, but they're very rare.
Definitely more challenging.
And they're very rare for the sake that when you're brewing them in a commercial setting or when you're going to try something like this, you're going to have the flavor of whatever that is at such a low level. But when they give you this whole sack of ingredients and you have to use 100% of it, sometimes it's a struggle to keep that flavor out.
Yeah, especially last year, the Serrano peppers, I remember.
They're
not
brutal.
being able to taste anything but the peppers.
Yeah.
And so it is a challenge to make a beer that is not going to overdo those flavors, especially since you're only allowed to use the malts and hops that you've been given.
Iron Mash popular event. They're almost booked up 2 days after the event. I haven't checked on the message boards here in the last couple of days, but I imagine if they're not booked up, they're already at the point.
It's going to go fast. But those of you in the Fort Worth area, even if you don't get to compete, are more than welcome to come out, hang out with the teams, watch the event, come out for the awards ceremony.
Award ceremony is a lot of fun. Get to try all the beers that people make.
Do a raffle, try everybody's beers. Yeah. Everybody will bring their own homemade beers that weren't necessarily made there.
Good stuff. It's at the RAR Brewery. A lot of you people know where that is. You people,
those people that are in there.
A lot of you guys know where that is. You know that they're a very supportive member of the business community as far as the home brewing community goes. So,
absolutely, and we're eternally grateful to RAR for all the things that they do for us.
They're almost back up and going themselves. I saw that they got their bottling line in now. One of the things damaged in their roof collapse was the bottling line, and that was always one of their worst things in there. So they thought it was going to be okay, and nobody had climbed up on top of it to see where like an entire truss member had gone all the way through the top of the bottling assembly, so it pretty much killed it dead. But let's talk about repeatability. I mean, that's why we're here.
And what is repeatability?
Well, repeatability in beer is talking about making one batch the same this time and next. It is what it is. Sounds like the same thing that we're telling you it is, but it's a lot harder than it sounds.
It's an awful lot harder than it sounds. We've had to sink a lot of research into this over the last few years, not just this week for the show.
No.
But we've had to sink a lot of research in this, and I think most brewers do after their first few batches if they really want to get with it.
Well, and because most people, I mean, what's the first thing that happens? You brew a beer.
Everybody loves it.
And then you want to brew it again.
And you love it, and you want to make it again.
And then you make it again.
And it's completely different.
Maybe good, but not the same beer.
Maybe, for instance, you did everything the same, but a Bull Mastiff took a lick out of the cooling wort.
Awesome beer.
Awesome beer, but it wasn't the same as it was the first time. So
suddenly your stout becomes a porter. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? So
drink it's what I say you're going to do.
There's so many factors that are going to go into your repeatability here. I mean, there's no way we can even begin to cover them all. But we can talk about a few of the biggies, I think.
Oh yeah, we'll hit on all the main topics.
Yeah, we can talk about temperature.
Temperature is a big one
across the board, because temperature is going to hit you. It's going to hit you in the mash. It's going to hit you. I mean, throughout the brewing process, you're going to get hit by temperature. Yeast.
Yep, yeast.
Yeast is going to contribute a lot to your repeatability. I mean, you might have the same strain of yeast, but maybe you pitched it at a different temperature, or maybe you made the starter
temperature again. Yeah.
Maybe you made the starter differently. Yeah.
And that's a big thing right there. Yeah, in the size of the starter, and basically the viability is the word that they like to use.
Viability.
Viability. Do you know what that means? That's your trivia.
Is that my trivia? Much like your digester.
You can't even remember.
Ology.
You didn't even know what you were.
I don't hear.
I'd like to change my answer to Cuban.
What kind of ologist I was. All right, so let's start with temperature.
Temperature, okay.
First thing. I've got a better idea. Let's go chronologically in the making of the beer. Let's start with the grain selection.
Okay.
We
recipe.
We made
recipe in general.
Let's just pick a recipe that we've made. Let's say we made the brown note.
Brown note. Okay.
And we want to make the exact same beer again, and we're going to start drawing up the malt bill.
Right.
I think pretty obvious to everybody out there is you want to draw up the same malts. But there are some pitfalls when you get to the store.
Right. Well, you get to the store, right, and you're looking for
Caramel 10.
Caramel 10. Well, this store doesn't have caramel, which is the Bryce English or American equivalent of Crystal, but they have Crystal, which is the English version of those malts. So same malt.
It's the same thing, kind of,
but they have slightly different flavors.
They are gonna hit the palate very differently. They're gonna mash a little bit differently. Yep. They're gonna boil a little bit differently.
Efficiency is gonna be a little different.
Yeah, and so you're gonna get a different beer.
So you end up with these different substitutions. Say you don't have a Munich malt, and there's bigger differences like that. They don't have roasted barley. You wanted roasted barley, but now you have to substitute it for either a chocolate malt, something not as roasty, or maybe a carafa, which is a way roastier malt than a roasted barley. So you're having to change your recipe on the fly just based on what's available.
So proper prior planning before you even get to the store is going to be really huge in your pursuit of repeatability.
Very much so.
So we've gone to the store. We've purchased the same malts and hops. Hops, same deal.
Okay.
You could get Fuggles or you could get Willamette.
Willamette, American
kind of the
version
same
of that.
thing,
Yeah.
kind of different. Yeah. So the same pitfalls there.
Right.
So, but we've got our same malts and we've got our same hops, and it's time to mill the malts. Where are some pitfalls there?
Well, you got different types of mills. Say maybe you bought them at the store the first time you made the recipe, and you didn't have a mill. You milled it at the store with the store's mill. And this time now you've bought a mill and you mill it at the house. Or maybe you mill it at your buddy's house who has a mill. And all of these things can vary because they've got different types of mills. And they've got different settings for how fine they crush the grains. So right there, that can affect your efficiency. Efficiency affects flavor, big time. So, yeah, I mean, you got just the grinding of the grains can cause some problems.
All right. So we've ground our grains, we've tossed them into the mash tun.
Right.
And now it's time to mash. And this is where your temperature, from here on out, temperature is going to affect every step of the way.
But what hits before temperature at this point? You got the water.
Yes.
So you've got water coming in.
I was jumping ahead.
And you may not have the same water. Say you're like Megan and I, and you've
started
moved here
with
in the last.
Ozarka.
We moved in the last 8 months. We actually started with filtered water through the fridge, but shoot, it'd take you an hour to get enough water to brew. And then we changed and started brewing with the 5-gallon jugs of Ozarka. And then we switched over and got a better filter, a whole house filter. And then we moved. And when we moved, although slightly different city, only a couple miles away, different water source, has 50% well water usually at any given time. Changes your water dynamics, changes the chemistry of your water.
Well water tends to be hard.
Yep.
Tends to have a lot of minerals in it.
Yep.
And there's different. It's going to alter the pH of your mash. And ideal pH is what, around a 5.2.
5.2 to 5.7 in that range.
5.2 to 5.7. And that's what's ideal. And of course, it's going to change for different styles of beer. But you can brew with a 5.3 and you can brew with a 5.5 or a 5.6, but you're not going to get the same result. So when we were in Haltom City brewing, we might have had 5.3 mash, and then when we got here, we had like a 5.7 mash or so.
So maybe that changes every recipe we've ever done. It has to be completely rewritten to get the same end result that we wanted, right?
Beer is what, 99% water?
Yeah.
So I mean that's probably your biggest contributor to repeatability.
It is, and most of the brewers that you see going and winning these events, consistently winning beer contests, they strip their beer of everything. They use a reverse osmosis filter, take every chemical out, and add what they want back. It's far more chemistry than I'm interested in doing. But
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, some people will do that.
I'm a chemistry nerd. I'll do it. We learned all about all of that back in environmental engineering too from Dr. Strebbit, who couldn't hear until halfway through the semester.
That's always a tough thing. Yeah, we actually had a teacher back in college that we were taking his course, and he was deaf to the point of hearing only about 5 to 10%.
He could read lips.
Very
astonishing. You could speak to him, and he would just have a conversation with you.
But had to have his hearing ear dog. And always going on.
Yeah, so every time he turned around and wrote on the board, we would all chat and do whatever. And
great teacher. Everybody tried really hard in his class.
Yeah.
But if he turned around on the board, we were going to talk about, oh, you wouldn't believe what I did last night. Of course, we got his class on a Friday morning, so usually...
Yeah, talking about Thursday night.
Yeah, or, what I called it an hour ago.
Right.
And so...
it was an early class,
it wasn't early.
Yeah, so long story short, we found out that summer that he'd had a surgery over spring break.
During spring break.
To remove the tumors from his ears, and he was able to hear us carrying on like a bunch of idiots for the entire second half of the semester.
Post spring break, we were caught. We
were caught.
Didn't find out to the end of the semester. He was a good
sport. He never.
He let us go for
he let
2 months?
Us go with it. He never said a word until after class was done. He was like, "Man, what is wrong with you guys?" And when we finally confronted him about it,
we get the whole response from him where. You're just sitting there and you're talking in class and you see what looks like an ear perk.
Right, exactly.
Did I just hear what I thought I heard?
It's Strebbit.
No, it's Strebbit. Maybe
daft.
He's just thinking really hard, has to turn his head so his thinking juice goes to the right side of his brain.
Well, he had to get all the Jack Daniels to one side of his head.
All right, moving on.
We are the king of tangents. Let's get back to repeatability, water. And we will not talk about hardness and water because that's what led us to our environmental engineering instructor.
All right. So anyway,
we've talked about water. Use the same water, guys.
At least use the same water. That's very much. Clean it, filter it, use the same stuff.
Worry about nailing an ideal pH later.
Yeah.
Until then, just use the same water every time. So temperature. Temperature is from here on out. That's the big one.
It's a huge one
because your temperature in your mash. It's going to affect... remember a few months ago, we talked about mashing. I don't know if you guys remember that. We talked about the mash. We talked about the different rests in the mash. We talked about the acid rest, which lowers the pH of the beer. We talked about the protein rest. We talked about the sacrification rest.
Big word.
Very big word, almost as big as testosterology.
That one. Easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say. So... if you have your alpha rest, let's say at 140 degrees instead of 138, you're going to have different things at work at different paces.
Yep.
And same with your protein rest. If it's off by even a few degrees,
or say you even do a single step and you're only at somewhere between a 146 and a 158 degree. The difference between 146 and 158, maybe 12 degrees doesn't sound like a lot, but it can be completely different in your efficiency and sugars and everything that's left in the beer.
Absolutely. You'll have completely different enzymes at work, and it can really affect...
Well, shoot, and while we're talking about that, basically your percentage of water to the amount of grain that you have. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's a huge thing. I mean, talking about if you're mashing a really thick grain bed, you're going to have 1 quart per pound of grain, but you mash something really thin, and it's going to have 2 quarts. Well, what's going to happen? All that water is going to strip out the sugars because it's not going to get saturated. So you're going to make your beer way drier by doing a thin mash like that. So yeah, you got a lot of.
So the amount of water definitely plays in. Amount of water and grains. Now, of course, we're talking about repeatability, and so rather than just throw out a bunch of things that might negatively affect your repeatability, let's talk about some solutions, specifically in the area of temperature.
So temperature, the big thing is use the same type of equipment and try to get the same type of temperatures. The easiest way to get repeatability is to not alter your equipment all the time, because you take that's a huge issue.
Huge. Yeah,
take notes every time you do
one thing at a time. Not altering your equipment.
Yeah,
and taking notes.
Yeah,
that taking good notes is what really helped us start making the same product time in and time out. I think
it was amazing how you could take a half a pound of something out of a beer and add a half a pound of this and do all this stuff. We talk about recipes being something that you would think would be the repeatability major factor, but it's just flat out not. You can vary your recipe at such a different level, and you look at the grains. The grains you may get from the farm from one year to the next, they may have a totally different taste.
Or grains within the same field.
Within the same field,
a
different bushel may taste like different than another bushel, and so you've got all kinds of different things going on to affect with the grain. So maybe you make a bigger batch. That's something you can definitely do. Turn it into a 10-gallon batch as soon as you can, because that takes away the percentage differences. When you've got a larger scale brew, you definitely are able to be more repeatable.
If you've got a pound of malt and you're off by an ounce, that makes a huge difference. If you've got 10 pounds of malt and you're off by an ounce, very little difference at all.
Yeah.
And so really the bigger the batch, theoretically, the better your repeatability. The better your note-taking. I remember when Kyle and I first started brewing together, we were having problems with the mash tun, because every time we combined our grains and our mashing water, we were getting different temperature losses every time.
Mm-hmm.
And what we figured out was that it had to do with temperature losses not in the grains but in the mash tun itself,
right,
because the mash tun was being kept outside. And so we might go into mash one day and the mash tun is 50 degrees, and we might go to mash 3 weeks later and it's springtime, the mash tun is sitting at 65 degrees. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, and the summer in Texas, so sometimes it may be 120.
Yeah, it might be 120 degrees in that mash tun. So what we've started doing is we've started priming the mash tun, and we're taking notes on the temperature of the mash tun when we dump out the priming water. And by priming, what we mean is we just pour hot water in.
Yeah, it cleans it too.
Cleans it. Brings it up to a certain temperature so you don't get those thermal losses when you dump your mashing water in.
And we use plastic mash tuns, so that's really effective in a plastic.
Very effective.
Not so much in a stainless steel,
Probably
unless
not,
it's insulated, but in a plastic mash tun, which I would say a majority of people use.
Yeah, when you start moving to stainless steel or copper mash tuns, you're getting pretty serious.
Speaking of, I finished drilling out that hole the other day.
Oh, nice.
I burned out my drill doing it, and then had to buy another one. Got a better one now.
I drilled out those bricks the other day.
Oh, awesome. Did that work for you?
Yeah, put in those new vents.
They do good?
Yeah, really good.
All right.
So,
home improvement,
home improvement and brewery improvement projects are all going very well. So, we've talked somewhat ad nauseum about the temperature in the mash, and we haven't even started with the boil yet. I mean, we're going chronologically here, and we're like a third or a quarter of the way into the brew.
So now we're boiling, right?
Yeah, let's move on to the boil. Most of us, and Matt, if you're watching, I think you're going to be an exception, but most of us are brewing outside.
Brewing outside's most common.
And so when we make the Brew and Bowl beer, let's say that, and that's always going to be New Year's Eve.
Right.
And it's going to be somewhere between 30 and 90 degrees here in North Texas.
Right?
It's going to be different than when we make the iron mash, where it's going to be somewhere between 100 and 120 degrees.
And so you boil a beer at a slightly different, or you can even get it to the same type of a boil. Let's say you can get it where the temperature is perfect, because I mean boiling happens, and the difference between 208 degrees and the difference between 215 degrees can be a little slow boil and just eruptions of bubbles. So get rid of that and say that you can get to the same temperature every time. When you're talking about what's going on outside, you're still going to have more evaporation loss in the summertime because the air is able to accept more humidity.
Evaporation losses, you're going to make temperature quicker.
Yep.
So really your grains are changing as you bring them from mashing temperature up to boiling temperature, and the rate at which that happens is going to affect the efficiency of your brew.
Because up until about 170 degrees, all the enzymes are still working. So if you got something like summer or like wintertime, when you got to slowly ramp it up. Here in Texas, we're burning.
It seemed like it took us half an hour to get the brewing boil, and even then, it was a tenuous boil at best.
Yeah, we had to have the whole thing and covered up as much as we could just to get the water to still boil. So.
And so, obviously, there's only so much you can do about this.
Right.
But if you do have a beer that you absolutely loved, and let's take, for instance, the brown note that was brewed during the springtime. It was a nice, 60, 70 degree day. If you know you're going to have a good, if you've said, oh yeah, let's brew the 28th of this month. Let's have a good brew next Monday. Well, you might look and you might look at the temperature and say, oh, that's about the same as it was last year when we did that great batch of brown note. Let's go for that same thing again. That's about all you can do there.
Yeah,
but
unless you want to brew inside and do some more things, which you can do. But, it's all how much money you want to spend, all how much repeatability means to you. I guess the biggest thing, the biggest element to me on repeatability is how much is it worth it to you? Because some people don't really care. They just want to make a good beer. And you know what? You don't have to try to be repeatable.
Just because it's not the exact same doesn't mean it's not a good beer. There's a lot of...
We've made third, fourth, fifth iterations of the same style of beer.
Completely different beers.
Lots of different beers.
All great.
Yeah, and some people oh man, that second one you made was awesome. And, really that was my least favorite. But, everybody's got their different styles.
Different.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
I feel like we should cut it off here, and we can continue with the repeatability for a second episode. I think maybe not next episode. Don't want to kill you. We don't want to repeat the repeatability episode. That would be weird. But I do want to bring up the trivia from I want to say 2 or 4 weeks ago when we talked about full moon beer.
Yeah.
And how the Swiss brew beer at the full moon because they think that it increases attenuation. Well, I did some research and found out that the single best attenuated beer this brewery has ever had was brewed on the first day of a full moon.
Yep.
So, going for repeatability, not a proven thing, but it couldn't hurt to check your moon cycles. This is something that we're gonna do some research on, I think.
So it's really no big deal. It's just checking your water chemistry, making sure you get the same grains from the same company, from the same field, from the same bushel,
from the same plant.
Same plant.
Same plant. And making sure they're all ground the same.
Right. You can't change equipment.
Making sure it's the same temperature outside when you brew.
And then make sure that the moon is in the same position as in the sky.
Right. And so, that's all there is to it.
And then...
Well, until we get to the second episode.
You get the rest of the stuff, which is probably the most important of all of it. But we didn't even get to it.
So what we're getting at is it's tough to repeat your beer exactly.
It is.
But you can take steps. Like we've talked about, you can take steps to try and get close. And frankly...
We talked about the size of equipment, though. Just go to your local brewery, go to your RAR, like we got around here, maybe a Franconia. Try their beer this year, and then save one, and try that with their next year's brew, or maybe 6 months from then's brew. It's going to be different, even at that size.
It's not going to be wildly different, but it's going to be a lot more different than they'd like you to believe.
And Budweiser and all these giant beer companies spend a lot of money to make their beer taste the same all the time. And chemicals.
Yes, thank you. Megan also chimes in. They do that with chemicals quite a bit.
So, better living through poison. So
until our next repeatability episode, we can go ahead and put it down for now.
I'd like to...
let's talk about testosterology.
Testosterone.
Testosterology.
I think that
Which-
I'd like to change my answer because I don't think you have much testosterone in your body.
No.
So maybe it has to do with really appreciating the color of the beer.
Ooh. No, you are way off. Rich, before we go on to the answer to this, could you pronounce it for us one more time since I forgot? I believe it's testosterology, but I'm
just tegestology.
and we can't hear Rich. He's
They muted me again.
I muted.
there it is.
Everybody else can hear me.
Testosterology.
Tegestology.
Testosterology.
There's no
No, Richard's back. You can let him talk.
I didn't send in the. Oh, I think he Googled it. Rich, you go ahead and read the answer, buddy.
Okay. The answer is, of course, the practice of collecting beer mats or coasters, right?
Wow, really? There's a word for that?
Evidently. I sort of stumbled on it. I thought it was so funny that I wanted to use it.
Interesting.
I thought so.
I learned something tonight.
Learned something about testosterology tonight. We had a little vocab lesson.
Tegestology.
So
you're saying tegesterology.
next
Did
week,
you notice how peaceful it was for like 10 minutes that episode after I muted that commercial?
Yeah, it was really nice. So next week, I know we've got some changes to the show that are going to be coming up that I'd like to discuss next week, sort of share with our audience.
One change I'd like to discuss is that Richard updated our show page on frontiertelevision.com. Looks great.
Yeah.
Rich, do you want to discuss one of the big changes on there?
Oh, yeah, sure, man. We did get the podcasting thing going. Let's see if I can punch it up here. Stand by.
And we're standing by.
Standing by. Yeah. Next week though, we've got a few announcements that we want to make. Are we doing a post show now?
No, I'm just covering it.
No, you're still going.
Oh.
Oh, the stay tuned part.
That's our high-tech video.
There are some changes in the show that are going to be coming in the next few weeks and months that we'll highlight a little bit more during the next episode. Next episode, I think let's see what
Great beer, by the way, man.
Dude, this is a phenomenal.
Really
beer.
balanced between the
This was an
the
amazing-
caramel and the hops in the beer.
This was a great suggestion by John,
Yeah, John Shank, last year's Iron Mash.
who we are going to have in studio for an interview on July 5th.
July 5th. If you're around day after our nation's Day of Independence.
That's right. We'll discuss a little bit more about the significance of that episode next week. Next week, let's start diving into our history of American brewing.
Okay.
You know, because I was thinking about doing it for the July 5th episode, but that's really going to be the day after Independence Day. So
And how about Jen's segment?
that's good. Jen's segment. Jen has agreed to do her first segment for July 5th.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of me actually, I'll go ahead and email her tonight. It's just a matter of me getting over there and getting the footage. But she's pretty excited about it. July 5th, we are going to be tasting the Ommegang Witta. And we're going to be
great brewery.
It's a great
We're
brewery.
going from one coast to the other.
We're going to be pairing it with cheeses that I actually got the cheese pairings suggested by a guy named Prescott Carter.
Oh, well, then it must be good.
Who is the local Ommegang representative.
Oh, okay.
And he suggested a few cheeses that we could pair the Ommegang with, so we'll announce those next week so everybody can run out and buy them. A little hint, one of them rhymes with brie. If you can guess what cheese that is.
Gouda. So,
all right, so I think that we're ready to wrap this thing up. I don't know, did you have anything else you
we're
wanted to
waiting
add?
on Richard. He's going to be...
I thought he talked about I thought he already posted his...
Oh, did he?
Oh, I didn't say a whole lot. But yeah, the podcasting's available, so if any of you guys are podcast nerds out there, you can go to the show page, which is at frontiertelevision.com/dogleg, and down there's a bunch of links there. It's like the brewery's homepage and the Facebook and the Twitter feed, and at the bottom down there's the RSS feed that you can subscribe to the podcasting. So we try to post those pretty quickly.
Feeds are pretty awesome.
Yeah, they are. The RSS feeds are pretty sweet. So.
It definitely allows you to be independent of iTunes.
So just stay with us as the show continues to evolve and mature, and I know we're really excited about the future of it. So until then, just always bear in mind that we are not professionals.
So please try this at home.
Right next, like that.
Don't think it too hard.
Yeah, I'm gonna break
You might break it.
Oh God, that is awful.